I awoke beside alien nurse. She giggled softly and said you held my hand. John Carter slowly opened his eyes, blinking against the soft blue light that filled the room. Everything around him was strange. The walls glowed faintly, smooth and curved, with no corners or seams he could see. Soft hums echoed through the room, and he could feel a gentle vibration under the floor. He tried to move his arms, but a dull ache stopped him. His head throbbed, and he realized he was lying on a bed that felt firmer than any he had ever known. He looked to the side and saw her. She stood quietly, her small form shimmering slightly in the blue light. Her skin had a soft, pale glow, and her eyes were larger than human eyes, round and filled with curiosity. She was smiling, but it was shy, almost nervous. John's mouth moved first, though words felt heavy. "Where am I?" he asked in a weak voice. The alien tilted her head. "You are safe," she said. Her voice was soft, melodic, like a gentle bell. John noticed the way she spoke felt calm, like she was carefully choosing each sound. "You were hurt, badly," she continued. "We found you after the crash." John tried to remember. Flashes of light, loud alarms, the shaking of the ship. He had been on a small exploration vessel, sent to study a distant planet. Suddenly, everything had gone wrong. The engines had failed and the ship had plummeted through the planet's thin atmosphere. He could recall the panic, the fire, the pressure on his chest, and then darkness. "I crashed," he whispered. His throat felt dry, his voice weak. "Is anyone else alive?" The alien's eyes flickered and a soft sigh escaped her lips. "A few," she said. "We do not know yet. Some are still trapped." She stepped closer, moving with a grace that made John feel both nervous and comforted. "You are safe now. I am Lyra. I will care for you." John tried to speak again, but the pain in his chest stopped him. Instead, he reached out, almost without thinking, and his hand brushed hers. Lyra froze for a moment, her large eyes widening slightly. John's fingers felt small and fragile compared to her hand, yet warm. He tried to say something, but the words would not come. Then unexpectedly she giggled. It was soft and quiet, like wind through leaves. "You held my hand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. John blinked, confused. "I did?" he asked. She nodded. "Even when you were asleep, your hand, it did not leave mine." Her glow seemed to brighten for a moment, and John felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. The pain in his chest was still there, but her presence made it easier to bear. He didn't know why, but he felt like he could trust her. Around them, the room hummed with activity. Faint figures moved behind translucent walls, their shapes strange and alien. Some carried glowing instruments, others adjusted panels that emitted soft light. John realized these were the doctors Lyra had spoken about. They were watching him, but their faces held no fear, only curiosity. Lyra noticed his gaze and said, "They are studying you. Our people do not understand humans fully." John tried to sit up, but the ache in his limbs forced him back down. "Humans are fragile," he said slowly, remembering the crash and the way his body felt. Lyra shook her head. "Not fragile, different. You feel more than we expect. You seek comfort even when you are in pain." John frowned, unsure he understood. "Seek comfort," he repeated. She nodded, her glow softening. "Your hand, it reaches. Your heart reaches. Even in darkness, you connect." John looked down at their joined hands. The memory of holding her hand in his unconscious sleep made him blush. He had not meant to, yet somehow he had. It felt natural. Minutes passed in quiet. John's mind raced with questions. "Where is everyone else?" he asked again. "What happened to the ship?" Lyra looked away for a moment, her eyes flickering like light through water. "Some are trapped in the wreck. We are trying to help. The ship, it is gone. Only you and a few others were found." John swallowed hard. The reality hit him slowly. He had survived, but at what cost? He could still feel the ache in his chest, the bruises along his arms and legs. Yet in Lyra's presence, the fear did not feel as sharp. Somehow, the small alien beside him made the world feel less empty. Lyra gently adjusted his blanket, her hands careful not to touch him too firmly. "You need rest," she said. "Your body is healing. Our medicine, it will help, but your strength comes from you and from connection." John tried to nod, but it made his head spin. Instead, he let his eyes close, letting the soft hum of the room and the presence of Lyra lull him back toward sleep. In the hours that followed, John dreamed. He dreamed of strange forests with glowing plants, of alien skies that shifted colors in ways he had never imagined. In every dream, he felt the small hand of someone holding his. Sometimes it was Lyra, other times it was his own hand, reaching out instinctively. He woke multiple times, disoriented, only to find Lyra watching over him. Every time she giggled softly, reminding him of something he could not yet name. On the third day, John's strength returned slowly. Lyra taught him to sit upright, to move his arms without pain, and to breathe more easily. She spoke quietly, explaining her people's ways. They avoided direct contact for reasons he could not fully understand. Physical touch was seen as unpredictable, dangerous, or even disrespectful. Yet here she was, laughing softly when he reached for her, and somehow it felt safe. John tried to speak about Earth, about his family, about the way humans comforted each other. Lyra listened intently, her large eyes tracking his every movement. "You humans, you do not fear connection," she said. "You are brave in ways we do not understand." John smiled faintly. He had never thought of it that way. Survival had always been about endurance, about strength. But now he realized there was another kind of strength, the courage to reach out, even when afraid. Later, Lyra led him to a window. The world outside was unlike anything John had seen. The sky glowed with three suns, casting long shadows across jagged landscapes and shimmering rivers. Strange creatures moved in the distance, some flying, some crawling, all unaware of the human who watched. John felt small. Yet at the same time he felt a strange belonging. Lyra stood beside him, her hand brushing his lightly. He took it again, this time consciously, and she did not withdraw. Instead, she smiled, that quiet, soft smile that made him feel alive. As night approached on that alien world, John sat in his bed, hands intertwined with Lyra's, thinking about the crash, the strange room, and the gentle alien who had become his guide. He realized that survival was not just about being alive. It was about finding someone to hold onto when the world was strange and frightening. He did not know what would happen next, but for the first time in days, he felt hope. Lyra's soft giggle broke the silence. "You held my hand," she said again, as if reminding both of them of something important. John nodded, unable to speak. The memory of unconscious nights, of instinctive touch, of warmth and comfort pressed against his chest. Somehow, even in this alien place, he understood that humans were not alone in their fear, and that courage could be as simple as reaching out. The room hummed softly, the lights glowing, the strange instruments pulsing with gentle energy. John leaned back, closing his eyes, feeling the hand of an alien nurse in his own. He did not know what tomorrow would bring, or if he would ever leave this world. But in that moment beside Lyra, he felt something stronger than pain or fear. He felt connection. John Carter woke slowly the next morning, his body still weak but improving. The blue light of the room filled every corner, soft and steady. He looked around, expecting to see Lyra as she always stayed near. She was already there, arranging instruments on a small table beside his bed. Her movements were careful and precise, almost like a dance. When she noticed him awake, her large eyes brightened. "Good morning," she said softly. Her voice made John feel calmer than he had in days. He tried to sit up, testing his strength. "I feel better," he said slowly. His voice was still weak but steady. Lyra nodded. "Your body is strong. Humans recover in ways we do not fully understand. Our medicine helps, but your instinct, it helps more." She smiled, a soft curve of her lips that seemed almost shy. John frowned slightly. "Instinct?" he asked. She took his hand again, small and careful. "You reach. even when you are in pain, even when you are afraid. That is your strength. John looked down at their hands. The memory of the crash, the pain, the fear all came back. Yet somehow holding her hand made him feel safe. For the next hours, John learned to move again. Lyra guided him gently, showing him how to sit, stand, and take small steps. Each movement brought pain, but also a sense of accomplishment. He realized that the alien medicine helped, but the care and presence of Lyra gave him something else: hope. As he practiced walking slowly around the room, John began to notice other details. The walls seemed alive, pulsing with a faint glow. Instruments hovered or floated near panels, moving without touch. Strange sounds came from the ceiling, a soft hum that seemed to change when he moved. The entire place was alive yet calm. "This world," John whispered, "it's beautiful but strange." Lyra tilted her head. "You will see more soon. The world outside is not dangerous, but it is different. We observe everything carefully. Some humans would panic." She paused, studying him. You do not panic. Even when you were hurt, you reach for comfort. That is unusual." John thought about it. On Earth, he had always seen people reach for each other when afraid or hurt. Holding hands, helping, being close, it was instinct. Yet Lyra's people saw it differently. Touching was dangerous, unpredictable, almost forbidden. He realized that this world did not understand human ways. Hours passed. John rested in short periods, trying not to tire himself. Lyra stayed by his side, always nearby, her presence constant. She rarely spoke, but when she did, her words were gentle, thoughtful. Slowly, John began to talk too. He spoke about Earth, about forests, rivers, cities, and families. He told her about the smells of rain, the taste of fresh bread, and the warmth of a sunbeam on a winter morning. Lyra listened, fascinated. She asked questions too, her voice soft. "You humans, you remember small things and they matter," John smiled faintly. "Yes, little things give life meaning. Humans survive by caring for each other, not just by fighting or hiding." Lyra's eyes glimmered. "We thought humans were fragile. We did not know you were strong in other ways." She paused, watching him struggle to lift a small cup of water. "And brave," she added quietly. As John continued to recover, he noticed the aliens moving beyond his room. Some discussed with quiet voices, pointing to screens or instruments. Lyra explained that they were the council, making decisions about humans. Some argued that humans were dangerous, unpredictable, and emotional. Others observed that humans could show courage, kindness, and connection. John realized that he had been more than just a patient. He was an experiment in understanding, though he did not feel like one. He was just himself, a human who had survived a crash and now depended on the care of a gentle alien nurse. One afternoon, Lyra brought him to a small observation window. The world outside stretched endlessly. 3 suns hung in the sky, casting long shadows across jagged cliffs and rivers that shimmered with colors he could not name. Strange creatures moved across the landscape, some flying, some crawling, all living in harmony. John could not stop staring. "This world is amazing," he said softly. "I never imagined anything like it." Lyra smiled faintly. "It is our home. You are the first human many have seen. Your ways, your care, it surprises us." John felt a strange pride mixed with fear. He had survived, but he wondered if others would survive too. He thought about the crew of the ship and hoped that Lyra and her people could help them. The next days brought more challenges. John learned to eat alien food, which was soft and smelled sweet. He learned the rhythms of the room, the quiet hum of instruments, the pulses of light that indicated activity. He noticed small things, the way Lyra's hands hovered near his, ready to help but never forcing, the way she smiled when he said something that showed understanding, the way she moved through the room with careful grace. One day, another human arrived. Kate Morgan was carried on a stretcher, pale and barely conscious. John watched as the aliens argued quietly, unsure if they could handle 2 humans at once. He could see their fear, but he also saw their curiosity. "She needs care," John said weakly. "Please help her." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. "You want to help?" she asked. John nodded. "I have to. Humans, we do not leave each other behind." Lyra hesitated, glancing at the council beyond the walls. She seemed to weigh their rules against what John asked. Finally, she moved toward Kate, gently touching her hand. John saw the same spark in her eyes he had seen when she first held his hand. Courage and care, not in force. As Kate's condition stabilized slightly, John realized the truth of Lyra's earlier words. Humans reached for each other because they had to, because it was instinct, because connection gave strength. He reached for Kate's hand too, gently, and she squeezed weakly in response. The alien instruments registered improvement. The council watched in silence, perhaps beginning to understand. That night, John returned to his own room, exhausted but satisfied. He thought about the strange world outside, about Lyra, and about the human instinct to care. Even in this alien place, human connection mattered. It gave life, hope, and courage. Lyra sat beside him, their hands joined once again. "Your people, they are different," she said softly. "I do not fully understand, but I see now. You reach for others because it makes you stronger, even when weak." John nodded, feeling warmth in her words. "We survive because we care," he whispered. "Alone, we are fragile. Together, we are strong." Lyra's large eyes softened, and she smiled. "Then you have taught me something important. Even if I do not fully understand yet, I want to learn. I want to try." For the first time, John felt that they were not just human and alien, patient and nurse, but something more. They were both learning, both growing, both discovering the power of connection. In this alien place, he had found not only survival but understanding. The days continued, filled with quiet lessons, gentle care, and small victories. John walked longer distances, ate with more strength, and spoke with clarity. Lyra stayed near, always watching, always guiding, always learning. Together they discovered something extraordinary. Humans were fragile in body, yes, but in heart they were resilient. Connection was not weakness, it was courage. And even on a world that seemed so strange, a human hand could bring warmth where none had been before. John held Lyra's hand before sleep, and she did not pull away. She giggled softly, and he smiled. It was simple. It was human. It was enough. John Carter had been on the alien planet for nearly a week. His body was stronger now, and he could walk without leaning on Lyra. Yet, every movement reminded him of the crash, the pain, and the uncertainty of survival. He had learned to trust Lyra and the strange blue room that had become his temporary home. Still, he felt a responsibility toward Kate Morgan, the other human survivor. Kate's condition had improved slightly, but she was still weak. John spent hours sitting beside her bed, holding her hand gently as Lyra monitored her health. Kate's eyes fluttered open sometimes, and she gave a faint smile when she saw him. The alien instruments showed steady progress, and the council began to watch quietly, taking notes on the unusual human healing process. One morning, Lyra approached John with a soft glow in her eyes. "We will try something today," she said. "Something to help her recover faster." John nodded, curious but cautious. "What do you mean?" he asked. She gestured toward the room. "I want you to sit beside her and hold her hand. Your presence, your connection, may strengthen her more than our medicine." John's heart skipped a beat. He had been holding her hand anyway, but Lyra wanted him to do it formally. It felt strange and important. He moved carefully to Kate's side, kneeling beside her bed. She looked up at him, weak but aware. "Hello," she whispered. John smiled. "Hi, Kate, we're going to try something together." He took her hand gently, noticing how fragile she felt. Kate's fingers twitched slightly, and a faint warmth ran through his palm. Lyra watched silently, standing nearby, her eyes bright with attention. She had never seen such an effect before. Humans had a strange power, connection, that could influence life itself. For several minutes, John and Kate sat quietly, their hands joined. John spoke softly, telling her stories about Earth, about the sky, the rivers, and the warmth of sunlight. He spoke about simple things, things she could picture even while lying weak and pale. Kate's breathing began to stabilize. Her eyes focused on him, a calm spreading through her features. The alien instruments began to register something unusual. Kate's heart rate slowed to normal levels, her breathing steadied, and her body temperature rose slightly. The council members outside the room leaned closer, whispering to each other. Lyra noticed their astonishment. She had known that humans were different, but even she did not fully understand the extent of their ability to heal through connection. Hours passed. John never let go of Kate's hand. He encouraged her to open her eyes, to move her fingers, to speak even in whispers. Slowly, she responded. She whispered his name once, then smiled faintly. John felt a rush of relief. She was alive, responding, recovering. The alien nurses around them observed, some with hesitation, others with fascination. Lyra finally spoke. "Your people, you do not survive just by medicine or strength. You survive because you care, because you reach out." John nodded, too tired to speak. He looked down at Kate, whose grip on his hand had strengthened slightly. It was a small sign, but enough to show the council that human connection was real power. Later, the council called Lyra to a meeting. John stayed behind with Kate, sitting beside her bed, holding her hand as she drifted in and out of sleep. He thought about the crash, the pain, and the weeks of recovery. He realized that the instinct to hold her hand had saved her in ways even the aliens could not explain. Humans relied on each other not just for comfort but for survival itself. When Lyra returned, her expression was serious but thoughtful. "The council is curious," she said quietly. "They did not expect this. They have studied humans for years in theory, but seeing it is different. Your actions, your care, it changes their understanding." John smiled faintly. "We do not mean to change anything. We just help each other," she nodded. "And yet it matters." That evening, a sudden alarm echoed through the medical wing. A power failure had occurred in another section of the facility. Lights flickered, machines hummed strangely, and the soft blue glow dimmed. John stood immediately, holding Kate's hand tightly. "What is happening?" he asked. Lyra's eyes widened. "A malfunction. Some patients must be moved, others cannot be moved yet." She looked around, assessing the situation. "You must stay calm. Your presence, it can help them." John's heart raced. Fear rose inside him, but he looked at Kate. She was awake now, weak but aware. He realized that she needed him more than ever. The next minutes were tense. Aliens moved quickly, lifting equipment, guiding patients. John stayed beside Kate, holding her hand, speaking softly, keeping her calm. She squeezed his hand, small but firm, and he felt a strange strength flowing from their connection. Lyra stood nearby, ready to act but watching in awe. She realized that this human instinct, reaching for others in times of danger, was something her people had never truly experienced. Hours passed. The power stabilized, but Kate could not be moved yet. John never let go of her hand. He spoke about Earth, about hope, about the simple belief that humans could survive even in strange places. Slowly, Kate's breathing steadied completely. The council observed quietly, their data showing improvement far beyond what the machines could predict. Finally, when the situation calmed, Lyra approached John. "You see now," she said softly, "humans do not survive alone. Your care, your instinct, it is a strength we did not understand." John nodded. He felt exhaustion but also pride. He had survived the crash, and now he had helped another human survive with nothing but care and connection. As night fell, John and Kate rested in the quiet room. Lyra stayed nearby, observing, learning. She thought about her own culture, which forbade touch in many situations, and how humans had taught her something new. Courage was not always force or strategy. Sometimes, it was simply holding a hand when fear threatened to overwhelm. John looked at Kate, her eyes slowly closing, her hand still in his. He felt a deep sense of relief. She was safe, alive, and slowly recovering. He thought about the crash, the strange blue room, and the alien nurse who had first held his hand. Without her care, he might not have survived either. Lyra's soft giggle echoed in the room, a small reminder of the bond forming between them. John realized that the strange blue planet, the alien council, and the soft glowing lights were all part of a lesson. Humans survived not because they were strongest, but because they reached out when they could. They survived because they refused to be alone, even in the most dangerous and unfamiliar places. The council would learn, eventually. They would see that humans healed each other in ways no machine or medicine could replicate. But for now, John, Kate, and Lyra sat together in quiet, their hands joined, sharing something beyond words. A human hand, a small act of care, had changed everything. Before sleep, John looked at Lyra, her large eyes reflecting the soft glow of the room. He smiled faintly. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." Lyra smiled back, tilting her head. "You held my hand first," she said softly, giggling. "You taught me what humans can do." John nodded, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the blue light around them. It was human warmth, the strength of care, the courage to connect. As the night deepened, John and Kate slept peacefully, hands joined, and Lyra stayed nearby, watching over them. The strange world outside hummed quietly, alive and indifferent. Yet inside the small room, human courage, care, and connection shone brighter than any machine, any glow, or any alien observation. John realized something then. Even on a world so strange, even among beings so different, humans survived because they refused to let fear keep them apart. And in holding a hand, in reaching for another, they discovered strength no one could measure. The day began quietly, but John felt a tension in the air. The alarms from yesterday had faded, but the memory of the malfunction lingered. He walked slowly to Kate's side, holding her hand gently. She was awake, her eyes bright for the first time in days. Lyra was nearby, moving with careful steps, checking the instruments and speaking softly to the council via a translucent panel. "Today," Lyra said softly to John, "we may face a real test. The council fears another malfunction. They are unsure if humans can handle danger." John looked at her, concern mixing with determination. "We will be okay," he said. "We survived the crash, we survived before. We can do it again, together." As they spoke, a sudden vibration shook the room. The soft blue glow flickered and machines hummed with warning tones. Lyra's eyes widened. "It is the outer systems," she said quickly. "A structural failure in the wing. Some patients must evacuate immediately. Others cannot move." She looked at John. "Kate is in that section." John's heart raced. He had held Kate's hand through recovery, and now the danger threatened her life. He moved quickly, taking her hand firmly. "We are not leaving her," he said, his voice steady but urgent. Lyra hesitated. Her people had strict rules about danger. Evacuation orders were absolute. Touching humans in emergencies was often forbidden. Yet she saw the determination in John's eyes. "Then we go together," she whispered, a faint smile touching her lips. She moved toward the door, guiding John and Kate as the floor vibrated under their feet. The lights dimmed more and alarms echoed softly. Other alien nurses and council members rushed past, but Lyra did not let go of John or Kate. Her hand hovered near theirs, ready to assist. They reached the corridor that led to Kate's section. Debris had fallen from the ceiling, and parts of the floor trembled. John instinctively held Kate closer to him. He whispered, "Stay calm. Hold my hand. We will get through this." She squeezed his hand weakly but firmly. The connection between them gave her courage, and John felt his own strength grow. Lyra guided them carefully. She touched the walls lightly, sensing weak spots. She moved them around hazards, her large eyes constantly scanning. John noticed something remarkable. Where humans might panic, he and Kate instinctively followed each other, their actions simple, yet coordinated. Instinctive care made them stronger than any protocol. Suddenly, a large panel above them cracked and began to fall. John acted quickly. He pushed Kate behind him, raising his arm as a shield. Lyra's hand shot out, steadying the panel just long enough for it to rest safely. The council members outside observed silently, recording the unexpected teamwork between human and alien. "You see," Lyra said softly, almost to herself, "humans, they survive through care, connection, instinct." John nodded, catching his breath. Kate's hand remained in his, holding tightly as if it were their lifeline. He realized something he had felt before. Humans were not strongest in body alone. Their courage came from refusing to be alone. The evacuation continued. Other patients were moved to safe rooms, but Kate's condition prevented her from moving quickly. John held her hand constantly, speaking softly, keeping her calm. Lyra stayed beside them, supporting them both. The floor trembled again, and a small section collapsed behind them. The three moved quickly, carefully navigating the shifting corridors. Finally, they reached a more secure chamber. It was smaller than the main room, but intact. Lyra guided Kate to a low bed, while John held her hand to calm her trembling. "You are safe for now," Lyra said. Her voice carried warmth, almost human in its comfort. John nodded. Kate exhaled slowly, her eyes closing for a moment as relief washed over her. The council members appeared at the doorway, observing quietly. They had not expected humans to react with such composure. John and Kate had survived by holding onto each other, by trusting instinct, and by refusing to panic. Lyra's presence had been crucial, but it was human courage and care that had made the difference. "Humans, they are unlike anything we studied," one council member whispered to another. "Their instinct to connect, it is power. It is strength." Lyra nodded, her thoughts focused on what she had witnessed. She realized that the rules of her people were limited. Caution alone could not explain human resilience. Courage often came in quiet acts of care. That night, the structural system stabilized, but the experience left John and Kate exhausted. Lyra stayed near, her glow soft and comforting. John held Kate's hand once again, feeling the steady warmth of life. He thought about the crash, the recovery, the danger, and the quiet strength humans carried inside them. "Thank you," he whispered to Lyra. She looked at him, smiling faintly. "You held my hand first," she said softly, giggling. "You showed me humans survive through connection, through courage and care." John nodded, feeling a sense of pride. It was not just survival, it was understanding, a lesson shared between human and alien. In the days that followed, the council studied human behavior more closely. They observed John and Kate, noting how they relied on each other, how holding hands, speaking softly, and simple touch accelerated recovery. Lyra became a teacher of sorts, explaining that humans carried strength in care, courage in compassion. Slowly, the council's perspective began to change. John walked through the halls, holding Kate's hand as she grew stronger. Other humans would arrive eventually, and the lessons would continue. He realized that survival was never just about strength or technology. It was about refusing to be alone, about reaching for someone else, and about trusting instinct and heart over fear. One evening, as the blue light filled the room, John looked out a window at the alien landscape. The rivers shimmered, the cliffs glowed faintly under the three suns, and the creatures moved with strange grace. Yet inside, human courage had shone brighter than any light outside. He squeezed Kate's hand gently. She smiled, tired but alive. Lyra approached, standing quietly beside them. "You have changed more than Kate's life," she said softly. "You have changed my understanding, and soon you may change the council's rules. Humans are more than we thought. They survive not by force but by care." John looked at her, the alien nurse who had held his hand in the blue room, and nodded. "We survive together," he said. "Alone, we are weak. Together, we are strong." Lyra smiled faintly, her glow softening. Then let us teach others what you have shown us. The room hummed quietly as the sun set over the alien horizon. John held Kate's hand, Lyra stood near, and the council observed. Human courage, human care, and human connection had proven themselves in a world that was strange and dangerous. The lesson was simple, yet powerful. Survival was not just about strength. It was about holding on to others, even when fear threatened everything. That night John thought about Earth, about the crew of the ship, about friends and family far away. He realized that human instinct to reach for each other was not just emotion. It was survival. It was courage. It was a power no alien machine or law could fully measure. As he drifted to sleep, John felt a calm certainty. Kate was safe, Lyra had learned, and the council would begin to understand. The future was uncertain, but he knew one truth. Humans survived not because they were strongest alone, but because they refused to be alone. The alien world was calm now. The structural malfunctions had been fixed, and the corridors were safe. John Carter sat beside Kate Morgan, holding her hand as always. She had regained strength, able to sit up and speak clearly. The blue light of the medical wing reflected softly on their faces, warm and steady. Lyra moved quietly among the instruments, checking readings and making notes. John noticed how different she seemed now, softer, more thoughtful, more aware of human presence. She had learned much from him and Kate, and the council's attitude toward humans had shifted. Humans were no longer just fragile creatures to observe. They were beings who carried courage, care, and connection. The council called a meeting that morning. John and Kate were brought into a large chamber with translucent walls. Lyra accompanied them, holding John's hand lightly as he walked. The council members, tall and luminous, stared at the humans with curiosity, anticipation, and something new, respect. "You have shown courage," one council member said softly. "Not by force, not by power, but by your care. You reach for each other when we would retreat. You survive by refusing to be alone." John nodded slowly. He remembered the crash, the weak hands of his crewmates, the terror of falling, and the soft comfort of Lyra's hand beside his. "We survive together," he said simply. "Alone, humans are weak. Together, we are strong." The council conferred quietly, their voices like soft music. Lyra watched John and Kate carefully, seeing the effect their presence had on the aliens. For the first time, she realized that human instinct to connect was not just emotion, it was power. The council could regulate medicine, technology, and rules, but connection could not be controlled. After the meeting, John and Kate returned to their rooms. They were to be prepared for transport back to human ships arriving soon. Yet the bond they had formed with Lyra made leaving difficult. John took her hand gently, holding it as he had many times before. She looked at him, eyes glowing faintly, her soft giggle breaking the quiet. "You taught me something," she said softly. "Humans survive because they care. They reach for each other even in darkness, even when afraid. I will not forget." John nodded. "And I will not forget you. You helped me survive too, more than you know." Preparations continued. Humans were being moved carefully to the ships. John and Kate were helped into transport pods, but Lyra stayed nearby, guiding the process. She touched their hands briefly before release, a gesture that meant more than words. Humans had taught her courage, and she had returned it through care. As the transport pods lifted, John looked down at the alien world. Rivers shimmered under three suns, mountains glowed faintly, and creatures moved through the valleys with strange grace. Yet in his heart, the memories of holding hands, of quiet courage, of human connection, shone brighter than any light below. Kate smiled weakly beside him. "We made it," she said softly. John squeezed her hand gently. "We did, together." The journey back to the human fleet was quiet. John and Kate rested, still holding hands when possible, reflecting on what had happened. The crash, the alien medical wing, the council, the lessons learned, everything had taught them one truth. Humans survived not because they were strongest alone, but because they refused to be alone. On the fleet, medical personnel debriefed John and Kate. Lyra's observations had been recorded, her notes shared with the council and human scientists. The aliens had learned about human instinct to care, and humans had learned that courage could take many forms. John and Kate had survived because they reached for each other, because they held hands, and because they trusted instinct and heart over fear. After debriefing, John found a quiet moment to speak with Lyra through a communication link. Her image appeared, glowing softly. "You are leaving," she said, a quiet sadness in her voice. John nodded. "We are, but you changed us and we changed you. Humans survive because we connect. You will remember that too, won't you?" Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes glowing softly. "Always. I will teach others what you showed me. Humans survive through care. Connection is strength. I will not forget." John felt a deep warmth in his chest. "Thank you, Lyra, for everything, for holding my hand and letting me hold yours." Days later, the human fleet left orbit. John and Kate stood together, looking down at the alien world shrinking behind them. They had survived disaster, danger, and the unknown. Yet the most important lesson remained. Survival was not just about strength, technology, or rules. It was about connection, about reaching for another when the world was against you. John thought of his crew, some lost in the crash, some still missing. He hoped they too would find care and connection wherever they were. He thought of Lyra, of her courage to stand beside humans despite her people's rules, and of the quiet lessons learned in a small blue-lit room. Kate squeezed his hand. "We made it," she whispered. John smiled. "Yes, together." On the alien world, Lyra returned to her duties, teaching other nurses the value of connection. Her people began to reconsider old rules. Contact was no longer forbidden in healing. The lesson of humans, the power of instinctive care, was recorded and shared. Humans had left a mark not just on the world, but on the hearts of those who had watched them survive. Weeks passed. John and Kate returned to Earth, greeted with relief and celebration. Yet in John's mind, the memories of the alien world and Lyra's gentle hand remained vivid. He knew that survival was more than endurance. It was care, courage, and connection. He had seen it in a human hand held lightly, and in the glow of an alien nurse who had learned to understand it. One quiet evening, John held Kate's hand, looking at the stars. He remembered the blue room, the soft hum, the faint glow, the dangerous corridors, and the moment they had reached safety together. Courage had not been loud or violent. It had been quiet, small, and persistent. It had been in holding a hand. He whispered to her, "We survived together, never alone." Kate smiled, squeezing his hand firmly. "Always," she said. Far away, Lyra watched new humans arrive on the alien planet. She taught them to heal, to care, and to connect. She giggled softly when she remembered John's hand in hers, and the quiet lesson that had changed everything. The council began to respect humans, not for their technology or weapons, but for their courage in care, their strength in connection, and the simple power of a hand held in the dark. In the end, John realized that humanity's greatest strength was not measured by force, speed, or survival alone. It was measured in the way humans reached for each other, even when fear threatened, even when pain pressed down, even when the world seemed impossible. Humans survived because they refused to be alone. And somewhere on that strange alien planet, Lyra's soft giggle echoed through the halls, remembering the hand she had held, the courage she had seen, and the lesson she would never forget. Humans had changed her world not by conquering it, but by teaching it the quiet, powerful truth of connection. John and Kate looked at each other, hands entwined, hearts steady. The journey was over, but the lessons remained. Survival was not just about life, it was about care. Courage was not always loud. It was in small acts, in gentle touches, in hands held when it mattered most. And in that quiet, simple strength, humanity proved that it could survive anywhere, even in worlds that seemed impossible to understand. The stars stretched endlessly above, but John knew one simple truth. Humans survived not by themselves, but together, always together.